Hello and welcome back to Mike Reads the World, or should I say Mike Reads the States, as this is number 4 on the United States list. If you're new to the channel, normally I read books from around the world, and I'm trying to read at least one book from every country. But when the whim strikes me, I am also going to be trying to read books from my own country, the United States. And even though I'm counting this for New Mexico because that's where Cormac McCarthy wrote it, and I'm actually probably going to count Cormac McCarthy for a total of 3 states in the end. It's kind of cheating, I know, but like it's Cormac McCarthy, and it's Cormac McCarthy. So, I found The Passenger at my local library and said, this is the time. I'm going to read this. I don't know why. It kind of struck me. I think it's because that when I was, reading Blood Meridian, the curiosity just really hit me to read like what was Cormac McCarthy's final statement, and and I heard somewhere that he had been working on this book like almost his entire life or something, and I knew from the one really famous interview that he has that's out there that he was really interested in physics and science toward the ends of his life, and I'm the kind of person that I love those books that I didn't bring it with me, but it kind of almost reminds me of like Ernesto Sabato's Abaddon el Exterminador, where or Angel of Darkness is the translation in English, which is, I think, pretty hard to find. I read it in Spanish almost 7 years ago now, when I was living in Peru, and it's kind of the final work that he wrote, and he's a character in it, and it's basically the entire book is just conversations, philosophical conversations that he has with characters in his past books, with real people that he probably knew in real life. I think Borges is mentioned somewhere in it. It's just a very philosophical novel that kind of goes from one thing to the other and just is a true exploration, deep dive into trying to find like the meaning of life, the meaning of existence. And some preface to Ernesto Sabato, this Argentine author, is that he worked he studied physics, wrote some textbooks in physics, and actually worked on stuff related to the early development of the theories that would lead to the atomic bomb in Europe, before turning away from physics and going completely to the arts. So this is a long introduction that has nothing to do with Cormac McCarthy, but I think it does. And I may not be the first person to make the connection between Ernesto Sabato and Cormac McCarthy, or have a conversation in my brain between their two kind of final cumulative works, the works that accumulated all of their sort of life knowledge and philosophy, and in my head kind of having a conversation with them, but I'm probably the first one to ever talk about it on YouTube. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, The Passenger. This video is not going to get any easier to do. I'm frankly intimidated by not only Cormac McCarthy's writing and the ability he has to explore ideas that are just terrifyingly cynical and to me, but I'm also intimidated by Cormac McCarthy's fan base a little bit, and that's kind of a silly thing to say, but I thought I would admit it before journeying myself into this, because I've only read, Blood Meridian and The Road, and I thought I might count Outer Dark for Tennessee, because it was highly recommended. It's possible, but I also think that it's unlikely that anything else Cormac McCarthy has written is going to hit me like, The Passenger and Stella Maris. So, yeah. It's, The Passenger. I have no idea, after reading this. By the way, all spoilers are on the table. I can't even come close to discussing this without spoilers. Every review I have to approach differently. Some books I'm able to talk about without spoilers and just kind of give a review. Like, this isn't a review, this is just thoughts, guys. So, yeah, I think this book for me surpasses by miles and kilometers, light years, Blood Meridian, The Road, and No Country for Old Men, which are the only works of Cormac McCarthy that I've previously been familiar with. I just think this is on a whole nother level of just, it's that philosophical novel, right? Thomas Mann's The Magic Mountain, Ernesto Sabato's Abaddon el Exterminador, Angel of Darkness, the bad title translated into English. It's that kind of book to me. It's a book that just like sets up a stage for different characters to try to find the truth of life and present different viewpoints. And to some people, I can see why, if you're like a huge fan of Cormac McCarthy. I'm not interested in reading more westerns, really. Even if they are like Blood Meridian's the only western I need at this point, I think. And but this, I was really like, this God. It starts out as like a mystery, but you can tell it's doing a lot more. You've got a character, this woman who's clearly hallucinating. She killed herself, and I'm just following this, like, where is this going? I know where it's going. Something I can't even sum up this damn book. I can't. It's all in the details. It's all in the conversations that Bobby has with people at restaurants. And you might think it's like the repetition of it is important. Like, the entire book is practically Bobby. Basically, you have this mystery that never really gets solved, and I don't even frankly care who the missing passenger is. I don't even care. That's not even the point of the book. Bobby is like talking to people at different restaurants and eating. It's all based in like the different stuff that they're eating in like the actual action that's happening. Like, are we eating a hamburger in this scene, or are we eating whatever? It's just like, and I got like hunger cravings like going through this book. I became very aware of like, oh man, I really want a burger right now. Like, I became very physically aware while reading this book, while at the same time getting way up in my headspace, the philosophies of physics, of this sort of like, I can't even. I found myself in every scene just like more and more unable to believe in anything spiritual. And it's really strange because I could tell this book where it's coming from. It is bringing this sort of deterministic, fatalistic perspective that comes from somebody who is like really interested in physics and mathematics and sort of the rational world. And and maybe I was wrong here, but I was almost setting it up in my head as already I'm thinking of this book as like Cormac McCarthy's version of this Ernesto Sabato book that I mentioned. And probably to a lot of people this is going to just make no sense at all, but like Ernesto Sabato being a person that rejected physics, like he turned away from physics in his life to go headlong into the humanities. He believed that the humanities were the only thing that could save us, and that this sort of chasing after progress and reason was only going to lead us into dark, dark places. And in my mind, there is nothing in The Passenger and Stella Maris that contradicts this. I think that the two books are in very deep conversation with each other across continents, actually America is really one continent if it weren't for the Panama Canal. But that aside, like just opposite hemispheres, just different time periods, and probably never read each other. Maybe they did. I don't know. okay, these two guys are in conversation with each other about the place of reason and progress, physics and mathematics, the places it's leading us, and where do the humanities fit in here. And as people, they may have even been on quite different places in the political spectrum. I don't know. I can only speculate about that. But to me, people talked about, when I look back at my Blood Meridian video, guys, like this video is a train wreck, God. When I look back at my Blood Meridian video, I see myself talking about it after having listened to other people talk about, like, first I read it, and then I spent a day listening to other people talk about it, and that video is so cringy to me because I just see myself kind of filtering what other people had said through my own experience, and I don't even know what was what. This book, guys, like The Passenger, Stella Maris, I have not listened to anything that anyone has said about it. This is like, so if anything I'm saying is unoriginal or totally off base or like against what you believe, trust me, I'm not responding to anything I've heard. This was a pure whim that I picked this book up only because I knew it was Cormac McCarthy's last book and the reasons that I said, and so everything I'm saying now is really kind of from the heart and a pure reaction to it without really hearing anything anyone else has said about it. So people talked about the judge, right, as this terrifying literary figure, this philosophy of like absolute, like cynical truth, a viewpoint of the world that, you know, war is always with us, and like this really dark nature of humanity that just, it will never go away, and it has always been there, and like, and I found myself agreeing with those who say, no, you have to stand up to this philosophy, and you have to, you know, fight it with the pen in whatever way you can. This book, I feel the exact same way, except Alicia is a far more difficult and dangerous adversary than the judge by light years. The judge, you have a way to combat the judge. I don't know. There's something about Blood Meridian being a historical novel, and me looking back at this and knowing it's historical fiction, right? That the judge is still a fictional character. It's still a viewpoint of the world, but Alicia is so situated, like, in a time that's not far off our own. Like, if you guys go back and look at the classics of world literature, a lot of them were written not far off of their own time. Some of them are historical fictions. That's true. Some of them are. But a lot of them were written actually about kind of like 20 years before when they, you know, the time period of the story taking place. There, a lot of classic and great literature is actually about the contemporary time in which they were written, or the recent events that led up to their contemporary time. That's what this kind of book is to me, and that's why I think it's like, you know, I found Alicia, to her perspective on the world, her fatal, in knowing the entire book that she is going to kill herself. There is not, you know, there is going to be no redemption for this character. And if any redemption is to be found, it's a path that I certainly don't want to follow. She is an adversary. She is from the beginning, and all the way through Stella Maris, listening to Stella Maris, I far more identified and far more felt myself on the side of the psychologist interviewing her than adopting her viewpoint, and yet she's so powerfully convincing. Like my God, you can look back at my video, like for Children of the Alley from Egypt, and I grew up Christian. I can't really say I am anymore. I'm not practicing, certainly, and I'm certainly in a place where I'm struggling with a lot of ideas about the world and trying to figure out what I believe. but this sort of like bend toward, we live in this universe that doesn't even know we're here. That's, I don't know, like at least the way that Alicia's seeing it, mixed with this sort of, hallucinatory. And this isn't saying that I don't have like compassion for Alicia. I certainly do, but I see in her this sort of like also this genius. She's clearly this genius character, and the story, even The Passenger, I feel is just as much about her as it is about about Bobby. But Bobby and The Passenger, though I was kind of at the end of The Passenger, I was moved, and I was like, wow, that was pretty incredible. But I didn't realize that the true battle actually was awaiting me today when I was listening to Stella Maris. In fact, The Passenger almost kind of, I think, in many ways prepares you for Stella Maris. But even in these two books, despite this sort of like absolute cynical worldview, and all of this is probably only going to make sense to somebody who's actually read this absolute idea that, and this is a different absolute than the word absolute. The word absolute is used both in Ernesto Sabato's not On Heroes and Tombs, Abaddon el Exterminador, and in Stella Maris, the idea of the absolute, but I'm not sure that they're referring to the same thing. There is the philosophical absolute that Ernesto Sabato was pursuing in his work of the humanities, the absolute of feeling a unification with all of life and the universe. And that includes the things that cannot be known, that we simply cannot know, that you feel a oneness. And this goes back to, who's that Greek philosopher? I can't name him off the top of my head. The guy who thought that all the world was composed of fire, right? That fire was the basic element. He saw the world as one. And so if Alicia she describes herself as this, mathematical Platonist. So what I'm getting out of this is that this idea of Plato that underlies all of our Western civilization, Christianity, the Neoplatonism, of course, is what influenced Christianity, from what I understand, is this inherent division in reality between like who we are as people and the universe. And this division is quite literally a hell. It is how we create our own hell. And that sort of division, this dividing up of the world into me and the outside, is like it can only lead to a kind of hell. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base there. I'm not quite saying it right. This idea of oneness, and this stuff sounds really, I feel like this sounds really basic, and like, what, you really needed a book to figure out that you're one with the universe, instead of like you're this special thing that can make an atom bomb and possibly destroy the entire world. Like, whatever. You know what? I realized I can, on some level, like I can't conquer the fear of death. I can't conquer death like Alicia says. Anyone can say that, oh, you can say this or that about your spirituality or being one with the universe, but, someday you'll be nothing and everybody will be nothing. Well, I don't know. Look up at the stars. There's got to be billions and billions of other life forms out there. There's maybe we'll never see them. Maybe we'll never get to them. But we might destroy our world, but we're not going to destroy the universe. Like, come on, like there's a lot here. There's way more here. There's way more here than one little genius girl or some judge that's created in the mind of somebody. None of you got none of these fictional characters have any power to stop me looking up at the stars and imagining how many beings are out there and that I'm part of all that. You know, there's like, thank you, Cormac McCarthy, for presenting me with what I thought was this absolutely terrifying adversary, not once, but twice. In Blood Meridian and in, well, I won't say Alicia, but maybe just, you know, just whatever Alicia represents, you know, or her viewpoint. And man, that got crazy. All right, that's my video on the Passenger and Stella Maris. Yeah, I don't think I got anything else to say about that for the time being. Gotta write a script someday. Have a good night.